Hello, friends, and welcome to the Aegis Protectors League. I'm Nyarko on play-by-play for this matchup between Optimal Esports Riptide and DoV Black, and I'm accompanied here on the mic in the caster section by, well, I would say a very special guest, but I am the one really guesting here in the Aegis League. I'm Quacks here on color.
Hello, everybody. And yes, today we are filling in for Bonfire and Slayer, who both unfortunately could not make it for the scheduled cast today. But nonetheless, we are prepared to bring you all of the commentary, all of the color, all of the play by play that you could possibly ask for in a regular cast to hope to fill in their stay. So today, our matchup is going to be DoV Black versus Optimal Esports Riptide. A little bit to know about these teams is DoV Black are currently winless with a 0-4 record on series, and in game, I believe they're 2-8, and I believe Optimal Esports Riptide are currently 2-3 across the board, with every single series they've had going to 3 games. So I'm curious to see if this might be their first 2-game series ever, as Optimal Esports Riptide are considered to be better according to predictions from a lot of people in APL and the other casters. Or if maybe we could see DoV Black fighting back, maybe seeing what they have in this roster and seeing some things that they have yet to show.
Yeah, Quacks. I mean, there is a chance that Optimal Esports or Riptide are going to be able to break that trend, but it has to be a trend for a reason. Playing some for fun league things like that. Regardless, DoV Black, this could be their chance to get on the board finally. This is another team that's kind of in the bottom half of the Harrowing Conference right now, and so this could be their time to strike. However, looking at those estimations, looking at those guesses from a lot of people that I look up and respect here I am a little bit worried about their change. Although I would love a competitive series, it's been a long time since I've been on 8. And being stuck here for a full 3 games sounds like a dream.
Yeah, 100%. I am definitely hoping for a spicy 3-game series here, as I think that both teams have a lot of potential here, especially up in that top side. A lot of the top side in both these teams has a lot of very cool champion pools. They have a lot of in-depth, meta-oriented picks with a lot of interesting pocket picks. Bennett has a lot of variety, but he plays things like Gwen and Nasus. So I'm expecting maybe we'll see a bit of side lane action here in the top lane. I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe a few solo bolos here and there. And then jungle as well. A lot of the junglers are also very focused on the same champion pools. Both of them really enjoy Jarvan or tank engage type junglers, which is seems to be the style that both of these teams kind of go for here, especially Optimal Esports Riptide. They always seem to like to go in these very dive heavy comps, these very engage heavy comps that just enjoy piling onto you all at once, all together. And I'm really hoping to see some good teamwork from both teams because they like to play that style of comp.
Yeah, Quacks. I think that there's a lot there to look out for. And honestly, there's nothing better to prep oneself on than do on stats. Just doesn't exist in any other league. Shout out to them. If you do want to know anything about these teams or the Aegis as a whole, make sure to go check them out. They really valuable project here, just setting everything sure that we actually get good insight into. Right. Optimal Esports, shout out to them as well. They're running their own championship league, their own cap tournament. That's been a banger as well. I've been on a few casts for them. Let's see if their esports division, their competition, just as well as their TOs are able to function there. Right now, though, it's just a matter of getting into this lobby first. Perhaps in many cases, the hardest thing for
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. So while we wait, I do also want to talk about DoV. We've talked a little bit about esports, Optimal Esports Riptide here, but DoV has actually been one of the longest standing organizations in basically competitive esports as a whole. They have been, I believe, established since 2005. I was 2 years old when they established. So they're pretty darn old for an esports organization, or maybe I'm just young for a caster. Both can be true. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how they play out as a team, though, because they've had a few roster shuffles here and there. In fact, when I was making notes for this team, I was a little bit worried going into it. I was like, do they have the same players as last week? Did they switch it up again? But I actually, as we load into here now, I'm seeing that I think I got the right player here, the right players here. So in top, I think that there's Thigh High Demise, who has been a pretty standard type top laner. Like I said, he plays a lot for his team. He seems to play a lot for side lanes, but also plays more team-oriented picks, right? He has the Ornn, the Mundo, the Shen. So definitely looking for a more tank-heavy top laner here in the backseat, trying to make sure that his team can help carry either with a Stand United from his Shen pick or the ornaments from Ornn, or maybe from mid lane. We could also see a lot of variety as well. In solo queue, it doesn't seem like he plays mid, so I would expect him to see. So I would expect to see some of the more easy champions we played. We might see something like a Victor. Maybe we'll see something like a Galio. But I think the real highlight here for DoV Black comes in the form of their ADC, who is Alpha Syaru, I believe. Hopefully, I'm not pronouncing that wrong here, but he plays a lot of hyper carry ADCs, such as things like the Ezreal, like the Zeri. So, with the new buffs from Yuumi, I'm kind of curious to see if they're going to stick him more on these hyper carry champions, because Yuumi has been able to propel these new champions like Zeri to have insane win rates, both in solo queue and in competitive play, and things like LCK, LCS, LEC, you name it. Zeri Yuumi once again is terrorizing the Rift. So I'm curious to see here if DoV Black will take advantage of that.
And so Yuumi hasn't been disabled at all in Aegis. That's pretty interesting. I think that most other orgs have kind of treated this as a mid-scope update, and therefore they've been kind of withholding her for play. So that'll be interesting to see how she's treated in the draft phase and whether or not there's is put onto the cat. I think that there is probably going to be some amount of priority laid on it. You know, it's kind of a guaranteed source of value, especially if you get to the late game. And if anything, she's more AFK now than she ever was in the past, right? And so if you have someone whose wrist hurts a little bit from grinding out Clash yesterday or the day before that, time to just throw them onto that champion. And hey, there you have a hyper carry, regardless of what ADC you actually decide to lock in.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think it is worth noting, with us talking about Yuumi, support champion, I think it's worth looking at their support as well. Anti-Spiral actually plays a variety of supports right now. He actually specializes in hook champions. Thresh and Nautilus are among the two most that he's played here in solo queue, and he's played those in competitive as well. He used to play the Ashe support. It was banned away from them a couple of times, but I don't see that being too hot of a pick now that the Ashe support nerfs have come through. I don't think it's a completely dead pick. I still think there's a decent chance we might see it here in these games. But yes, the nerfs definitely did a number on that little off meta pick that was honestly such a pain to go against. I hated going against Ashe support in my solo queue games. So I don't expect to see Ashe support, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do.
Ashe support certainly still is playable, even with Umbral Glaive nerfs and changes on that front. Obviously, because Ashe is the 180 in that role that doesn't actually go for that build path, you needed to directly kind of knock her down a peg, but I don't think it took her out of viability. So ever the vision control, your ult constantly being up. These are two huge tools that either team can advantage. And honestly, it's kind of like that Yuumi. I said it before. It is a guaranteed source of value. In fact, I think a lot of the draft meta right now, at levels of play and in all roles, is kind of focused around. Right, you will always have Cataclysm from a jar. It's kind of the reason why that champion's been played
Mhm.
so much. It was kind of the case with Maokai before he was completely gutted from that role, that you would always just be able to press R prior to fight. And I hope to see a little bit of that here, in the Platinum League. Guaranteed value is something that you don't necessarily get from your players all the time, as harsh as it is to say. And so getting it in your draft is always really
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Guaranteed value is definitely one of the most, basically, being safe and knowing that your pick still has viability and uses even when behind is definitely a net that a lot of APL players and APL teams, for that matter, enjoy using. So with that being said, I would also not be surprised to see things coming from other lanes that are much safer, like you said, the Jarvan. We could see something like the Gragas, maybe. I know Gragas, along with thinking that champs and certain picks are very safe, is also the ability of flex. And I think that's something that a lot of lower division teams, plat, gold, you name it, take to their use to their advantage right now, is the ability to have a champion be in multiple different roles. It makes drafting against it much more difficult. Gragas right now, arguably one of the most versatile champions in competitive, being able to play both top, jungle, and mid, has a lot of tools in all three lanes. And so I'm expecting to maybe see some action from Gragas because of just how much of a safe bet he is, with being able to peel off of threats for your carries, just doing a lot of damage. Usually in jungle, at least I can speak for jungler since I'm a at least I can speak for jungle since I'm a jungler. Gragas jungle is one of the best picks there right now because he can build things like the Night Harvester. He can build things like the Shadow Flame and still remain as a frontliner, still remain super tanky, has a lot of built-in tools for him to be able to access those tank options for him. So I wouldn't be surprised with some flex picks here and there for both teams, but we'll have to wait and see as hopefully the draft does start up here soon.
Quacks, I'm going to go a step further on the Gragas front because we are still waiting for both of these teams to actually file into the draft proper. They are now finally all in the lobby with DoV Black, most likely taking blue side. The one thing to note is that I'm going to say it's not only a three-way flex. I think it's a full-on five-way flex, especially with Senna kind of coming back into the meta. You can go
Mhm.
Senna, Gragas bot, go Roa, have fasting Senna, and boom, now you have an AD threat and a full AP threat down there. Even in the support role, tanky Gragas is still decent. It's just kind of been overshadowed of late by either the Roa or Night Harvester build, depending if you're in a lane or you're there in the jungle. But as I say all that, bans are coming through. We'll see if this focus on this champion even is going to matter, as Sivir is actually the first thing banned away by DoV.
Yeah, 100%. I think Dove is smart in targeting WAPs right now because he plays a lot of more long-ranged ADCs. We see things like the Sivir from him, along with things like Caitlyn and Varus. Basically, very safe ADCs are kind of his thing. I've noticed when he plays in competitive and even in solo queue, likes to kind of sit back, let his team do the stuff, and he sort of snipes them from afar. As our next ban here comes in from Hecarim as OERT focus down on crowd control IRL here. Crowd control plays a lot for the more team fight oriented junglers. Jarvan, Wukong, two very strong junglers right now that have very impactful ultimates. The Cataclysm, the double knockup from Wukong. These are things that you definitely have to keep in mind. And I think Hecarim also fits that very well. His ultimate can do a lot of damage if you hit it correctly. And he can be a very powerful and very scary champion if he gets even a little bit ahead with his variety of build paths. We all watch Doanel, so we know what Hecarim is capable of when he's ahead.
It is kind of weird though. I feel that as if in this first ban phase, we're getting a lot of tier 2-ish bans rather than the things that are really heavily prioritized by either side. Cassiopeia, for instance, is a very, very good choice to go into the mid lane. Also has some top lane flex potential, does a lot of damage, but mostly is seen as a response. Perhaps this is just something that Sir Envy specializes. Finally, I think there is a tier 1 ban coming out there with the Caitlyn round out DoV's first selections. Optimal Esports Riptide now have one more ban under their belt. They've pinched away a jungler. They've pinched away a support. Although, I would love to see a lane Nautilus coming through in the likes of DoV. I'm going to just say that is a support ban, though, probably going Spiral. And it looks like they're going to double dip down there in the bot side as Anti-Spiral now won't be able to hit either of these hook champs.
Yeah, 100%. I mentioned it before. Hook champions are anti-spirals thing. So with Nautilus and Blitzcrank banned away, I wouldn't be surprised to see a Thresh potentially from OERT here, as that is an Aurelion Soul locked in here for DoV. Aurelion Soul, easily one of the best mid laners right now. He has basically everything in a mage you could ask for. He has team fight potential, has good wave clear, has good damage, good scaling. Basically one of the best mids in the game right now. Champ can do everything as my predictions came true, and we see a Gragas and a Thresh pulled in here from OERT. That flex coming in here for them, and Anti-Spiral able to play his hook champions like I was hoping he would.
And DoV gonna snap up that Cho'Gath that's been power spiking. I gotta say, Quacks, this really feels like a draft where both teams just decided to handshake away all of the best champions in the meta right now and then split them evenly on either side. We get an Annie in here as well, and I think that my conspiracy theory complete, but DoV actually gonna angle with the Senna, and I think this is Cho'Gath Senna bot.
I have not actually seen this in anything that isn't the LCK yet. So if this is a Senate Cho'Gath bot, I'm very curious to see how this plays out. It's definitely one of the more pocket pick esque duo bot lanes, but essentially the idea is that they have a decent laning phase and they both scale really well. They can survive the laning phase despite Cho'Gath being melee with his passive and things like that, and Senna being able to heal him. The Shroud also obscures them from the ganks and can hide the giant, massive 50 gajillion foot Cho'Gath in it. And so I'm curious to see how well they'll be able to pull this off, as it's definitely not an easy 2v2 lane to pull off, as we do see the Jinx here from OERT to finish out the first phase of picks.
This is an interesting spec by OERT versus the Senechogath because while this is going to be a champion that scales magnificently, the same can be said for Senechogath. And what I'm kind of worried about is that maybe OER underestimates the power of the 2v2 early game. Maryville University and Sela has been picking Senna Cho'Gath basically at any opportunity. Heck, they're just picking Cho'Gath with the regular support at any opportunity. And it's been working out because they're just able to absolutely dominate them, get them a little bit off kilter by a Q knock up into silence. Already poke is coming down. And as you try to escape, the cooldown is so deceptively short on Cho'Gath knockup. They're just able to do it again and again as they move that long lane. So I think that there is a dynamic here where EOV Black can just come out absolutely steamrolling the Jinx Thresh. And we'll have to see if OER is prepared for that play as now we move into the second ban phase. Tryndamere being knocked out. DOV, my guys.
Yeah, 100%. Top laners being focused by both teams here as we open up our second half of the ban phase. Tryndamere is definitely one of Bennett's more played champions. I mentioned that he loves to side lane. Tryndamere is definitely one of those champions who isn't amazing in the team fights. A lot of his strength does come from being able to push turrets, dominate lane phase. Things like that are what Tryndamere excels in. So I am not surprised that they ban away a very lane focused champion like Tryndamere, and he's very, very difficult to deal with here. By basically, if he's ahead, it's very difficult to deal with him. As we do see the Udyr ban coming in here from DOV Black, as yeah, Guster Posey has played it in a match before, and he did really well on it. He has a lot of these more niche jungle picks here. He has the Gragas, he has the Udyr, he has the Poppy. These are all more uncommon tank weak side type champions. And I think Udyr in the right hands is easily the best jungler in the game. I speak from experience as an Udyr main myself that I think if you don't respect the Udyr, he will kill your entire team, even if there's a Cho'Gath, even if there's an Aesol, even if there's a Senna. Udyr will not stop and he will come directly for you. As we see a Kindred pick here for OERT, eliminating the idea that Gragas will be going jungle. Instead, he will be focused on a lane, a solo lane.
And if I were a betting person, and I often am, much to the demise of my wallet, I do think Optimal Esports Riptide are going to put Gragas into lane and just get them to Aroa or AP. And that's going to free up Bennett top side of the map to take a tank, which is very much needed, I think, alongside the Thresh for an Optimal Esports side. But if they, in fact, go that angle, I think that's a very, very good call. And they're coming out with a clean draft. DOV a little bit more sinful on their side now that the Lee Sin's coming out for crowd control IRL. And this is an interesting pick given the amount of scaling that they're trying to go for. And also the fact that they're stacking so much AP is a pause for concern.
Yeah, 100%. I think Lee Sin is definitely just a counter move to the Kindred. His Dragon Kick can get her out of the ultimate or get anyone who's in it out for that matter.
Mhm.
And obviously, the other champion who can do that is Gragas. And they can't do that. It's picked for OERT here. So maybe that was a tactical pick to pick the Gragas first. So definitely a smart pick on their part to get that away from DoV so that it can't counter the Kindred. As we do finish out our pick phase here with the Yone, meaning that honestly, we could see a Gragas top, a mid. Yone is definitely, he can go both top and mid, but usually it's a mid laner. So I wouldn't be surprised if we actually do see a Gragas top here, but I don't think that would be smart as Cho'Gath. It looks like this will just be a. It looks like this will be a. Who is in the top lane? Cho'Gath is in the. I'm confused. Who's is
Pretty
Orianna and
cer-
Aurelion Sol on the same team?
I'm pretty certain that this is going to be Aurelion Sol top. You fare decently well in a long lane, just being able to eat yourself back over there pretty quickly after a reset. There's an argument for being something like Orianna support with Senna bot, and then that frees up the Cho'Gath to go somewhere. DOV playing with their hands close to their chests on this one, but overall, there are some gripes to be had with both compositions, right? Like I said
Mhm.
before, way too much AP stacked on DOV side, but Optimal Esports Riptide not necessarily answering back in most prudent of ways, which is to just spec into another tank that really will be impossible for any champions to kill, particularly kill early, right? Aurelion Sol is going to take a very long time to scale up, especially if we're getting them stacks. But perhaps it's the case that they're going to try to do that with a Gragas, although that also then cuts against optimal being able to pump out AP damage themselves. It's a very, very odd one, and I'm really excited to see where everybody's going in terms of lanes and builds.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. I think that both of these teams have the potential for a lot of flexes, a lot of different build paths, and a lot of different ways to play the game overall. I would expect both of these teams to heavily prioritize dragons, regardless of where this Aurelion Soul is, top, mid, whatever. He has the potential to roam with that W, and I would see that OERT are going to heavily focus on scaling. Jinx, Kindred, these are two marksmen who love to scale. You know, Kindred, obviously she has her marks, and Jinx, once that champion gets to 3 items, becomes an absolute monster. And hopefully and probably they'll be playing a lot with the dragons here, trying to secure vision around them. I wouldn't be surprised if this Thresh heavily prioritizes roaming in that time, as well as I do feel like that is DoV's biggest weakness, is that Senna can't roam nearly as effectively as someone like the Thresh. Senna definitely wants to stack up, get those souls, be around when minions die. So roaming isn't nearly as advantageous for her as it would be something like a Thresh. So I would expect the early game to go slightly in OERT's favor, but you never know. You never know what could happen.
A lot of dynamics early to look out for. Max, I am going to push back a little bit upon POV's deficit in the roaming side of things. I just don't really think you could leave the Jinx alone. Thresh is going to kind of be obligated to stay down bot side to make sure that the Cho'Gath Senna just don't just jump on top of this champion and really kind of roll through the lane like that. Maybe Thresh will be able to get some value, but even though you're hooking a very immobile Orianna there in that mid lane. You got to watch out for Lee Sin, one of the best counter gankers in the game, can really be defensive. And overall, I think that while what you're getting to here at the very end is correct, optimal esports side are going to have a very tough one ahead of them, especially if they fall behind early. DOV doesn't necessarily slouch on that early game at power. I think especially if you see early priority dragons, Orianna rushing to level 6, having Lee Sin behind them, getting shockwave, could lead to some big fights that actually out positive for Blue Squad side. So it's a very interesting one for sure. I know I've used that term quite a bit here, and it is the classic caster fallback, right? You say, "Oh, it's interesting," if you don't want to call it good or bad, but that's really kind of the name of the game here. I don't think either of these drafts are particularly good or particularly bad. They're definitely smart and they have an ear to the meta, but I don't know how responsive they are to one another, and I don't know how both of these are capable of piloting these to the promised land.
Yeah, 100%. So with that being said, I think we should probably go to a break for a couple of minutes here as we let the teams load in, talk about what they're going to do, and we will see you guys on the other side. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right with you.
Walking on them. One moment to escape. You walking on them. Never been. All our trouble seems to fade away. This is how I feel when you take me to some levels that I've never been in.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Aegis Protectors League. We are here with game number 1 and loading onto the Rift for a matchup between DoV Black and Optimal Esports Riptide. DoV moving S5 through the bot side of the map. They got some good pick potential here. Let's see if they can make anything of it.
Yeah, 100%. I am curious to see how both these teams tend to play the early game because both teams here definitely have scaling comps, which is I ranted about this between games, but I don't understand the Kindred press the attack. When both these teams are very heavily focused on making sure they can make it to late game, an early game rune like press the attack doesn't really make sense to me, especially as someone who plays a lot of Kindred. If I were this Kindred, I would definitely say that going lethal or Conqueror here has way more benefits than going the PTA. You can have an argument for both, but we see blue side stacking here, maybe looking for an invade. I can definitely not blame them for doing that, as Thresh, a hook champion, we all know how much they like to invade, and Kindred obviously wants those marks, so I can see them maybe going to try and take those by force, as we might see a fake leash here from the bot lane.
Few different dynamics to go for. It looks like DoV is eventually going to send that Senna Cho'Gath to the lane. Arrow cross and laps though for Guster Posey, who, while I do agree here, Quacks, on your analysis of the Kindred rune, who's to say, do runes even matter anymore? I feel like I go runes wrong half the time on my champions. I'm AFK during champion select, and you know, maybe that is why I've been struggling this season, but I like to believe that runes just are less impactful than we like to give them credit.
Well, I had another person make a joke to me the other day on Twitter that we feel like we're playing items instead of playing champions. So who knows? Maybe runes are like a slight niche in that direction here. As we see both junglers starting on opposite sides here, I definitely think this is the right call if you're Kindred. You don't want to go face-to-face here with that Lee Sin, because early on, Kindred's range makes it so that she essentially can't fight the Lee Sin straight up. And if Lee Sin ever at any point hits that Q, it's very difficult for the Kindred to eventually win out in that fight, especially when she doesn't have that ultimate here. As we do see a little bit of damage coming out here in the mid lane. This is a typical melee versus range mid lane matchup here, with Orianna just throwing the ball around and bullying whatever poor melee mid laner soul is unfortunate enough to go against her. In this case, it is a Gragas. So a pretty standard start from both teams here, as we could see crowd control IRL here take this red and potentially look bot, while Guster Posey might be looking top here. We see him in the bush.
Already really good vision control here for OER. Top side of the map, Bennett just going to pull him down, get a little bit of poke down, high demise. But this is really good control over the river. Now, bot side, we are seeing that engage like you talked about. Anti-Spiral is a good knock-up down onto Laps. Going to get chained up as well, but Arrow Cross, who's got buying space, actually just going to ride in their death sentence, and Alpha Syro so low, no longer contest.
That is actually a really big flash to burn if you're on the side of red team here. Kindred loves ganking flashless targets here, as it's really easy to kill them, obviously. And with Senna being Senna, she has absolutely no escapes. So if blue side isn't careful here, if Senna isn't careful here, you could definitely see a very early death, as we do see Guster Posey going in.
Good little interrupt, and unfortunately the Aurelion Soul with nowhere to go, just going to give first blood over to Optimal eSports Riptide, and particularly Guster Posey on that Kindred. Maybe the early game runes are going to pay off after all.
Maybe. I might eat my words. I have been known to caster curse quite a few of my AGL games, so who's to say APL can be any different here, as Kindred with the huge Shuttle Crab take. That is a mark over to the Kindred, as she did not have the ASOL mark, so we're just going to leave that for one mark on the Kindred. Already, that's a really big thing to get if you're Kindred. Winning out on that mark RNG is definitely a feels good moment, not just for the champion, but also your mental. Your mental sort of gets refreshed when you get those marks. It's a feels good moment for Kindred players.
And really kind of a dream start here for Optimal eSports Riptide. We saw an attempted lane gate from Cloud Control bot side of the map, but it just didn't really come through. Now they're going to try to do something against
he used the E.
The mid lane. Flash still available, but they might not even want to use it as they are going low. However, of that summoner spell is going to be enough to keep that man alive for the time being. Yet again, another kill denied from DoV.
Yeah, I was actually just about to say how difficult it's going to be for crowd control IRL to gank the mid lane, as Gragas's belly bump interrupts most dashes, that being anything from a Lee Sin Q to even a Aurelion Soul channeled W. Things like that are what Gragas just says no to. Is basically just a giant note card with that belly bump, but he used it too early on the wave to try and get that push out, and he gets chunked for it and punished for it.
Ooh, and Bennett now really putting on the gas, top side of the map. Big, deep trade. Cosmic Flight going to get Thigh High Demise out, but they're at just such a sliver of health. They're going to have to go for the reset, even with the Lee Sin now hovering top.
Yeah, 100%. We can see that they might have predicted he would go top, trying to deny that mark away from Kindred, and we can see that bot lane, they're taking that dragon here. Very early dragon take, nearly 6 minutes in. The Chemtech Drake is going to go over to the red team. Like we talked about in draft, Drake control for the side of red team is super important. Both these teams like to scale. A Dragon Soul is really in both these teams' favor, and we can see that OERT are definitely taking advantage of that. Definitely knowing that they need to scale, and taking those early Drakes is a really good thing from them.
And right now, the game has opened very much in Optimal Esports' favor. However, that being said, DoV Black, they have the Rupture on that Cho'Gath looking so clean with that skin. So credit back to them on that front. May not be an in-game dealio, but still, I love Broken Covenant as a skin line right now.
Yeah, 100%. I think the Cho'Gath skin is absolutely, it's basically something out of like HP Lovecraft. I love the skin, as we might see a little bit of fighting here. Kindred's here.
Yeah, I mean, there's that Rupture to stop the initial engage, but Waps has the damage to put it through onto Alpha Cyro, and even with the tower right there, Anti-Spiral is going to be sent back to the Fountain. The fact that now Guster Posey is at 2-0, with Waps also getting ahead, means that some of these weak spots on OER's draft are really becoming mended, and now DoV is in a rough situation.
Yeah, 100%. We can see that DoV are trying to remedy that, trying to push in this top turret, maybe go for a dive here, but it's going to be really difficult. Bennett still has that flash, and even if they do kill him, he still has that teleport, and they can see they can't go for that dive just yet. They basically are trying to make sure that High Thigh Demise can just have a laning phase as this Aurelion Soul as he tries to scale up here. So definitely good rotations and good awareness from the side of red team here, as Guster Posey getting really fed on this Kindred. That is not what you want to see if you're blue team. A fed Kindred is an absolute nightmare to play against, especially if they know what they're doing. And Guster Posey, he sure as hell seems to know what he's doing.
Certainly. Only one stack so far on the Kindred right now. Not necessarily the best rate of all time, but the gold income is definitely going to help him get some more in the future. And unfortunately, Crowd Control IRL has just kind of had to babysit this top side of the map. Still not really paying off in the form of skill or any. The Lee Sin kind of losing their window of opportunity in favor of DoV, as now Sir Envy has got a little bit of help in that mid lane arrow cross, and that's the flash force out of the Orianna.
He tried to flash predict, and he tried to do the Mad Life thing, but it did not go according to plan. Arrow X Cross, this is exactly what I said in Champ Select. He wants to try and roam here. We can see that Waps, yes, he is left alone on an island, but he has that ghost. He is about to have that flash, so I definitely think it's difficult for them to try and kill a Jinx with 1 kill and a very early gold lead here, and with both sums for that matter, as they're taking full advantage of this, and it looks like they're posturing to go around this Rift Herald, trying to prioritize those objectives as those teams, and just trying to take over the map before it can even begin, before Crowd Control IRL or anyone from the side of blue team can get on the map.
2,000 gold lead for Optimal Esports Riptide, and given that the concentration is very much on Guster Posey company, that's double Noon Quiver completed on the AD and the priority, the value that Red Squad are getting from that is so nice, because now the Jinx is a little bit more sufficient. It's still pushed back towards their turret, but as you're saying, that Shelly now picked up by Optimal Sports, and it's not only a 2,000 gold, it's more gold in Potentia as soon as we see the top of this.
Yeah, 100%. We can see that this Kindred, after taking the Herald, is sticking around top lane here. I mean, look at the CS difference between the two top laners here. 81 to 46, 9 minutes in. Bennett is putting on an absolute clinic here in the top lane, as he has a humongous gold lead here over Thigh High Demise. This Aurelion Soul top lane definitely doesn't seem to be working out here, as we do see the mark on the crab start to spawn. That should go the way of Guster Posey and give him his much deserved and much needed second mark.
We've talked about it a few times on broadcast, not even necessarily with you, Quacks, although I'm sure you've had the same exact discussions with your own little merry band, right? But sometimes Aurelion Soul just scales. Sometimes they just become absolutely unstoppable, even if they have a rough early laning phase, but there's a difference between a rough early laning phase and being 0-1 and down 40 CS, right? That is not rough. That is getting absolutely steamrolled. And it's not like Yone is a slouch in the scaling department, right? So that's something I'm really worried about for DoV's side. I would hope that Thigh High Demise could just kind of stop Optimal with some of their wave clear, some of their ability to scale up and really affect team fights with their big ultimates off of their Stardust, but they are in a dust deficit right now. It's going to be very, very tough for them. Optimal eSports Riptide firmly control this early game. It's really their game to lose.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking of that early game control here, we see that, oh, hang on, some damage coming up here in top.
Oh, that is so sad. You are a cosmic dragon bringing galaxies alive by your very willpower, and all of a sudden a pissed off ghost guy with 2 swords just taking you to basically 0 health off of 1 exchange. It's a rough time to be Aurelion Sol right now, especially given the fact that OER had picked up second dragon.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking of which, going back to my last point before the trading in top lane, Guster Posey already has that Kraken Slayer completed. 10 minutes into the game, has that mythic. So this Kindred definitely not going to be behind in this game like we feared it might happen. Guster Posey is doing absolutely amazing for himself right now, as I would expect this Kindred to be an absolute menace here in the late game. And, I mean, we talked about it. Red side has a very front-to-back style comp here. If Envy can do, you know, frontline things, if he can be the frontline for the team, if Arrow X Cross can be that pick that they need him to be, there is absolutely zero way they're ever going to get to this Kindred or this Jinx, as Waps and Guster Posey are super far ahead in this game, which is exactly what Red side wants.
And I think that's just going to continue for Optimal eSports. The confidence of the Kindred to now just walk up basically solo with maybe a little bit of priority into any top side of the map. Sure, some of this is a vision call, right? Some of it is in it, but it doesn't change the fact that the Kindred feels like they're self-sufficient and they don't even have to gank a lane. Now, all their individual laners are just picking up kills whenever they so desire, as Bennett just sends Thigh High Demise back to the fountain with no recourse whatsoever.
Yeah, 100%. An excellent solo kill here from Bennett, as he is taking advantage of the Aurelion Sol's rather slow time. Ooh, a beautiful cast.
Yeah, and that's just going to be another kill picked up here. This time, Guster Posey does come into the lane, and as soon as they do, it's Value City. Sir Envy going to get a little bit of control back. We talked about the range advantage for Mental Boomer, but unfortunately, that is just going to be less valuable when you have such a proactive already fed.
Yeah, 100%. Sir Envy definitely putting on the Bomba clinic there, as he gets an absolute great cast. And Guster Posey with that third mark here, and Arrow getting a hook that would have killed, burning a flash here from Alpha Stereo. Oh no. Oh, that's unfortunate.
Good attempt by Guster Posey with the Lamb's Respite, not able to get to the Gragas in time, so finally DoV Black gonna get on the board here, but it might be too little too late. I mean, at this point, Quacks, it's a 4,000 gold lead at the 13 favor of Optimal eSports Riptide, and it's not like this kill is even going over to someone that has shutdown. You need to really take it to either the Yone, who's currently once again smacking Thigh High Demise, or Guster Posey, if you want to get back into the...
Yeah, 100%. And we can see that Kindred is just starting to basically walk into the jungle of blue team, just completely unafraid here with such a significant item spike. And I also want to highlight the pet numbers on both these teams as well. Guster Posey has 6 on his Mosstomper Seedling, whereas Crowd Control IRL only has 12, and not even boots complete. So the jungle difference in gold is just absolutely skyrocketing, despite the experience being the same. They're both level 9. Guys, jungle experience totally isn't a problem, by the way. And yeah, just an absolute domination here from the side of OERT in basically every single lane. Arrow X Cross with beautiful roams here in the mid lane. Guster Posey doing really well. Bop's doing really good with just being able to hold his own in the lane phase. And Bennett, of course, being able to just solo kill the Aurelion Sol whenever he wants. Now we're at a 50 CS deficit here for the top lane.
Not quite a Flame Horizon, but still, I think that DoV Black has seen Doom on the horizon at the very least. Thigh High Demise is just kind of completely boxed out of this early to mid game. Optimal Esports Riptide are going to try to continue to bully this team, but that's a big 3-man rupture, and it's coming in a beautiful fashion with a shockwave, and all of a sudden DoV Black find 3 kills off the back of a wonderful push forward by Anti-Spiral.
I bet you didn't see that coming in the audience, did you? An absolute wombo combo here on the side of DoV Black, as they don't look like they're done. They might want to just go in and try and kill Waps, as Anti-Spiral went around with that Q, but no, unfortunately, it doesn't look like they're going to greed for that Jinx kill. But a beautiful wombo combo nonetheless from DoV Black, maybe trying to get themselves back into the game. We'll have to see how much gold they get off of that, see what items and gold advantages they can get off that to propel the lead even further, as it's now a 2K gold lead, but it's definitely a good sign for a potential comeback here. If you're DoV Black, you might be feeling a little bit of hope.
For sure. Bennett was coming down, trying to maybe interrupt the taking of second Rift Herald, but Crowd Control IRL going to pick that one up in time. But I will say, even with a really optimal engage, Optimal Esports Riptide still are ahead. They are still in the... And we haven't seen this Yone really go on the team fighting warpath just yet. Once that in fact does occur, I am still afraid that DoV Black is going to find themselves lacking a little bit. And while they are trying to push towards this dragon, I think that they are really, really split in how they're trying to approach. And that means Anti-Spiral is going to be taken down. The comeback kid has been eliminated. And now with Jinx excited, Wax is going to get the double kill.
Absolutely beautiful cast here from Envy here, an absolutely beautiful hook here from the Thresh that just put the nail in the coffin for this Drake fight before it even began here. I was about to make a point on the strength of DoV Black's potential to be able to 50-50 these Drake fights with the Cho'Gath R plus the Smite from Crowd Control, but they didn't even get a chance to 50-50 as Red Team just completely destroyed them in seconds. The gold lead closing, be damned. Red side came to play tonight.
And that's really tragic. DoV Black, they get their heads above water for just a second. Optimal Esports Riptide immediately understand what they have to do. They reconnoiter, they know they still have the advantage. They get down to the bot side river, and DoV, it really looks like a will they won't they scenario where some of these members wanted to go for the engage. I thought they had the angle, but others knew that that was a lost fight, and unfortunately it just turned into a full-on disaster. The 3 kills they got immediately traded back, and Optimal Esports Riptide find themselves at soul point.
Yeah, 100%, and that's really good if you're the side of Red Team. This is going to be a Mountain Drake, as hold that thought.
Lantern is a fair ability. Honestly, I miss the Thresh, but now I understand and remember why I constantly ban this. An adept Thresh player just makes even winning plays feel so right there. All of that pressure completely reversed. Arrow Cross was able to those summoner spells even. And now we do have the map opened up just a little bit more. The High Demise probably happy about that fact. They're staying top, they're absorbing some waves, but it doesn't change the fact that the Aurelion Soul is still isolated.
Yeah, the Aurelion Soul is really far behind, as I do want to highlight the Mountain Dragon is our soul for this game. And I do think it is worth noting that this is arguably the best Drake you could hope for in this comp. Guster Posey already has the shield with that green pet, and just giving him a bigger shield is going to be so difficult to kill this Kindred, even if you manage to find a pick onto it, which I doubt you can do, as we see a little bit. He tried to steal it away, but unfortunately the Q plus the Smite on the Lee Sin does quite a bit of damage, my friend. But yeah, going back to that Mountain Drake, it is essentially good on every single champion on the side of Red Team. It makes Gragas tankier. It ensures some tankiness for the carries, who are both still very far ahead of the curve. It ensures that Yone gets an extra shield, as he is going to go in before I can finish my point.
And it's a 2v1, so I think that they won't be able to get out. Although Mental Boomer is going incredibly low. The shield will save them, and Lee Sin gonna get a crucial shutdown in this game. However, the cross map from OER, while it doesn't result in another death of High Demise, it does result in the falling of this tier 1 tower top.
Yeah, 100%. That is a pretty decent pick on the side of Blue Team, but it is answered by arguably a more important thing at this point in time. Towers still give a lot of gold even 20 minutes in. You have to remember, we're only 20 minutes into this game. They have already taken this game completely over just as the surrender timer is starting to come around. So definitely still a very dominating game here from OERT, as they are still very much around the map here. As with this Drake, I have a feeling this is going to be the do or die fight for both teams here. Even if Red Team somehow managed to pull off a wombo like they did earlier, I'm not sure it'll be enough, as the carries from OERT are just so far ahead. Even with these picks that they could be having, it's just so difficult for DoV Black at this point to find their way back into the game, even if they get this Drake and even if they get a winning team fight.
Crowd Control IRL in that chat pinging that the Dragon is coming up soon. And I think that means DoV Black are, in fact, going to look to contest it, even with the massive deficit on their side in terms of their power budget. Thigh High Demise is just still nowhere close to getting a full-on comeback going. They are very far behind. That Roa just not really accelerating their game plan. They're 3 levels down versus Bennett right now. And while Heartsteel Seta theoretically can work, there's 0 stacks on the item right now. And Alpha Cyro just also isn't doing any amount of AD damage. We already talked about the fact that Optimal will be able to spec pretty hard into MR and kind of favorable. But it looks like at this point in time, aren't getting any amount of adjustment from item is in a macro play, and it's just an unfortunate for them. Now they will try to desperately hang on, maybe go for a steal or the like. They're all packed up like sardines behind this Dragon, but here comes Arrow Cross, gonna get hit by the knockup, but they have the death sentence to answer right back, and Alpha Cyro comes out worse for wear in that exchange, having to flash back, being taken below half health, and that's full control over to OE, our bot side.
Yeah, 100%. We can see blue team just trying to claw. They're basically grasping at straws here, just trying to get inches and meters onto this map and onto this river here, as I really don't know if this is where you want to be if you're DoV Black here, as an open space like this Drake, or like the Mountain Drake has made it, is really good for the side of red. The cast can be really effective in open spaces like this, and it's just very difficult to play, as we do.
All right, well, Lamb's Respite comes down, and the invincibility is going to block the Skies Descend. Crowd Control finding the angle, but Waps just has too much damage, getting the double, and also further, we're getting excited. So now, Thigh High Demise finds themselves the last one left alive. This Dragon is gonna go down, and Optimal Esports Riptide can even look for the Baron.
That was an absolutely beautiful Lamb's Respite. I mean, look at the health bars here from OERT. They're all so incredibly low, and I have a feeling that team fight could have gone very differently if Guster Posey didn't put down such a good Kindred ultimate there. As we can see, red team posturing straight for that Baron. They're saying, health bars be damned. Let everything be damned. We are going to propel our lead further, and we are going to take this Baron, and it looks like they're going to do it uncontested.
All right, well, DoV Black now find themselves very much on the back foot. It's unfortunate. They had to make a gamble. They decided to do it around that Dragon Soul, but now it's the worst of both worlds. It's nearly a full ace. The 2 most important neutral objectives in the game at this point in time going down in favor of red team. And Optimal Esports Riptide really just needs one more good fight in this game, all but done.
Yeah, 100%. We can see the Blade of the Ruined King here coming out for Guster Posey second. There are a lot of different opinions on what you can build second item for Kindred here. Blade of the Ruined King is one, Black Cleaver is one, Wit's End is one. I've even seen some very sociopathic Kindred mains go IE second, which I don't necessarily agree with. I would say here that the second item to go for is probably Black Cleaver. You and Waps are both incredibly ahead, and you have a Heartsteel Senna who's basically nothing but tanky, and also Cho'Gath is a very tanky champion along with that Lee Sin. So I think you could benefit a lot here from a Black Cleaver buy, as we see a little bit of damage.
DoV Black overextended, trying to chase down Zero Cross, not able to get anything except for the fear of God struck into them as Optimal Esports Riptide closes the noose. With the health deficits now, multiple resets have to be taken. This for one mid gonna go down in favor of OER, and I think they continue to push Bennett all by their lonesome bot, splitting, massively pressuring their Aurelion Soul, and this is just such an awkward situation across the map now. Blue team shoved on all fronts, and I just don't know what they can do to answer back against this huge gold divide that is now being created between them.
Yeah, 100%. Blue team just trying to see what's left as gets hooked.
Big box there, and unfortunately now Anti-Spiral has nowhere to go. Sky's Descent comes down, but it is just a blip on the radar of OER as Waps gets 2, and now the push can continue with even more vigor. Red squad completely dominating the Rift.
Yeah, here, 11 assists here on Guster Posey. If I'm Guster Posey here, I'm yelling at my team for KSing all my kills. 11 assists on the Kindred here. Come on, guys. What are you thinking? As he has been playing ridiculously well here for a Kindred. Kindred, we had our doubts here as it is a pretty difficult champion to pull off in the competitive scene. It hasn't really seen any kind of play in LCS or any of the major regions for that matter. So playing around it is definitely a pretty difficult task, but I would say that OERT here have been managing it really well as Arrow X Cross has been roaming with it. They've given her avenues to take her marks, and overall just those 2 kills in the early game really set Guster Posey to be far ahead for the entire game, as Kindred is probably one of the most snowbally champions in the entire game with kills and with marks, and just makes it incredibly difficult once that Kindred is ahead to get her far behind again. And Guster Posey, again, I just have to give him credit here as he's been playing amazing and has the biggest shield on a Kindred I have ever seen in my entire life.
All right, well, the Baron buff is expiring at this point in time, Quacks, and so Optimal Esports Riptide will stop their tear for at least it's a bit more calm as ever. We'll see if DoV Black, given the fact that they managed to can push back out and maybe go test or something of the like, but they find themselves down about 11,000, 12,000 gold, and that just means that any amount of overextension or mistake made on a red squad's vision is going to lead to a wide part crucial picks, and all of a sudden the onslaught, the siege.
Yeah, and I guess while we have a little bit of downtime here, I would like to kind of highlight Crowd Control IRL's build. This is kind of one of the biggest weaknesses of Lee Sin is that he is more or less. Oh, never mind.
Oh my gosh. Bennett on the Sploinky. Sploinky gets silenced, but just able to rush down Crowd Control, forcing the kick out of the Lee Sin and the Dragon's Rage being fun. This close to something crucial like the Elder Dragon. I think that red squad is just going to be able to push with impunity, really establish full vision, a lot of pockets, a lot of traps, and DoV Black, they're already struggling on that front. I mean, that Yone was so deep into enemy territory that it just didn't matter. In fact, they want to go in for seconds. Anti-Spiral being taken less than half health, and a beautiful death sentence over the wall is going to confirm another kill for the Jinx. Wax has the Ghost activated alongside the Get Excited passive. That flash doesn't mean anything. They already got the double kill, but they will not need that Summoner spell to close out this game.
Yeah, we can see Sir Envy pushing out the top lane, making sure that Thigh High Demise cannot move. The team is going through for a classic 1-3-1 split on both these lanes, and it seems to be working as with 2 players down, there's just nothing that DoV Black can do to respond to all 3 of these lanes. They cannot divide their resources enough to deal with all of them, as it looks like they're just going to go for all 3 of these inhibitors here, going and rotating from lane to lane, trying to establish dominance as the wave here in top lane is pushing in. And I'm curious to see, are they going to be able to make that rotation in the base, or do they have to go around here?
But Bennett still has their ultimate available. The Fate Seal could be the angle in. They're going to posture heavily with that utilization of the Soul Unbound. Thigh High Demise just flying back towards the fountain. And as you say, Quacks, that's going to be all 3 in him already secured by Red Squad. The Super Minion push might just be enough for them to besiege the last 2 towers. Bennett going so deep, and look at that. nobody is able to release the mountain on Blue Squad's side, as now that's already one tower down, and a dive against 5 is all going to be in favor of OER, as they will first set upon taking this last one down. They are now moving towards that Nexus, Super Mega Death Rocket Zone, and everybody on DoV Black's side out, and they will go quietly into the night here. Game number 1 to Optimal Esports Riptide.
Yeah, DoV Black not even putting up a fight here to defend that Nexus. I was expecting the Aurelian Soul to maybe drop down one final Sky's Descent to see if he could stun enough targets, or hell, maybe even just for it to look cool. But nope, it looks like DoV Black just kind of want to get on to the next game. And speaking of next game, I think that's definitely what DoV are kind of having in their heads right now, right? Draft adjustments. What can we do for next game to make it so that we could potentially win the game, or at least put up a better fight than we did in this game? Because by all accounts, this was absolute red side domination. OERT dominated every single lane. They dominated jungle, had basically every objective under their belt, and won fights before they even started at every turn. So an absolutely beautiful game. So if I'm DoV Black here, I'm thinking, okay, what can we do differently? What can we change? And what can we ban away? What were the issues this game? And what can we make for ourselves next game? And I definitely think it will start with maybe trying to change up the bot lane a little bit. While Senna Cho'Gath is definitely a good lane, I would argue that it's really difficult to pull off correctly, as Waps was just able to solo lane the entire game. Even when you said that he couldn't, he just was able to, because I don't know if it was them playing the lane badly or Waps is just really good, but I definitely think the bot lane needs a little bit of a change, and they need to look at that if they want to go into a better game too.
Yeah, certainly. I'll eat my words on that front. Waps is just better and built different. And man, Thresh got a lot of value on those roams. So Quacks on that front, OER dominated alongside many other fronts. I think that's the problem here. You're asking the right questions at the end of the day, Quacks. What can DoV Black do? What can they change in the draft? What can they change in their early game? The problem is the answers to those questions in itemized list form would be so long that in between games, there's no way they'd be able to read. DoV Black just seems to be struggling on so many different fronts that adjusting one of them still will not be enough to carry them to victory. I can see why the estimations of a 2-0, the predictions come through in favor of Optimal Esports Riptide. And so now I really think it's going to be up to a miracle to get Black their first dub of the season. Regardless here, OER seems to be condemned and cursed going to game series, so perhaps they're going to be taken to the ropes here for the second match running. We're going to throw it to a quick break, guys, but when we return, it's going to be for the second draft of the night here in the APL.
I wanna go now. Hey, cover the storm now. And I wanna go and take what I own. Should've done it long ago. Hey, futures call me over now. Flying low so sky high. Maybe gravity is my guide. And I don't care where I fall. I'll be better off. the skies. Our mouths are shut and our hands are tied. And every time you take my hand, the cycle starts again. But I wake up just before we land. You want me to swim, but you'll be my ocean. We're spinning in circles, a circular motion. One day I'll sail away. I know you won't look for me. You say I'm better off this way. That's what you decided for me. And every time I close my eyes, we're falling from the skies. Yeah, we're falling, yeah. And every time you take my hand, the cycle starts again. You want me to swim, but you'll be my ocean. We're spinning in circles, a circular motion. You want me to swim, but you'll be my ocean. We're spinning in circles, a circular motion.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Aegis Protectors League for the second draft of the night. Optimal Esports Riptide absolutely rolled through DoV Black in this CH. I just don't know what angle to take for this team to find purchase right now, as it doesn't seem to be that they're going to change these bans up much at all. Cassiopeia and Sivir both off the table once again on their side. Meanwhile, OERT, they don't feel like they got to change anything much either. Although now they're going to
Ooh.
take away the Thresh from Arrow Cross themselves.
Yeah, and then we see an Aurelian Soul ban here on the side of DoV. For those of you who aren't aware, both teams decided to switch it up a little bit. OERT are now on blue side, DoV are now on red side. So they're definitely banning away that Aurelian Soul in fear of it being first picked. And with first pick being in mind, we see the Gragas repeat here for the side of OERT, just repeating the threat of that three-way, or as you like to say, five-way flex. And I definitely think that Gragas was definitely one of the better champions that helped them win their game yesterday. Had a lot of pressure, even when mid lane was kind of stale. There wasn't a lot of kills going on there, but I definitely think that Gragas outside of laning phase was really, really useful still, as we see the bot lane being immediately picked up and picked here for the side of DoV and Alistar Varus. So what do you make of this here?
It's certainly a different look for Alpha Cyro and Anti-Spiral, a little bit more traditional. I think that Alistar is in a great spot. I don't think it's necessarily the greatest pairing for Varus, although you can still try to use defensively by just Wing out rather than going for the headbutt pulverized combo. But it's also a champion that really thrives on the ability to roam, and I don't think that Varus is a champion that you can roam much with. However, that being said, we saw and had this exact same concern with Aerocross and Wops on that Jinx, and it just didn't matter. The Thresh still was able to leave lane after OER got ahead early. After DoV could up, turn things around, get themselves ahead off the back of crowd control IRL or the like. Now maybe that Alistar can in fact fulfill.
Yup, and on OERT here, finishing out their first half of the draft, we see the Senna Sylas here. Now, I highly doubt this is going to be a Sylas jungle. It has long outlived its usefulness here in solo queue. Every time I see it in solo queue, it basically loses. So I would expect that to be a Sylas mid lane and a Senna either ADC or support. It kind of can change, but I would expect it to be a support nonetheless, as we see the Viego pick here for DoV here in the jungle. Now, Viego is definitely one of the more niche junglers right now. A lot of junglers that are meta right now enjoy being more gank heavy type champions that specialize in ganking, champions that can build some of the more broken items, Black Cleaver, Radiant Virtue. And Viego is kind of a strange case in the sense that he can't really build either of those, but his strength doesn't come from building. It comes from the enemy team comps and how much mobility they provide. And in this case, Gragas, Sylas, two pretty decent and mobile champions. I would say Viego is actually a pretty decent pick here as we go into the second half of bans with top laners being banned away.
I think it's a good adjustment from crowd control IRL. I was not very impressed with their recent play. I like the fact that they tried to tech it against that Kindred, get them out of the Lamb's Respite, but the concern that I had was not from that group play during the game. It was from very early on. They just were not getting ganks off. They were not doing what that champion needs to do here. While Viego is still very skirmishy, they aren't necessarily as reliant upon a full-on snowball as much as they can, in fact, snowball and kill. I think that we are going to be a little bit more passive play out of crowd IRL, just trying to farm up, trying to back against Bo3, who still is an unknown quantity here in this draft phase. Go for, but if they are looking back at returning Kindred, I think that the angle be black now, moving from that second ban phase after in Fiora to get themselves a top laner. It's going to be the Ornn.
Yeah, I definitely think, as you were said, just chilling back, scaling up, farming, whatever you have it. Ornn is definitely one of the champions that excels at that. Ornn can fulfill a lot of different niches that a team comp needs here, as we see the Vayne lock in here for OERT. Definitely one of the less common ADCs. A lot of analysts and people that I've talked to in the ADC position who Vayne ADC have said Vayne is in actually a really ugly spot right now, as she's one of the lesser picked ADCs simply because of that range. She has really short range compared to all other ADCs and is paired up with a Senna, a very long-ranged marksman. So I'm curious as to the dynamic that OERT are going for here in this bot lane combo.
I'll tell you what the dynamic is. I think that that's going to be Vayne top for Bennett, just trying to tear through the Ornn, because you got Swain Senna bot now.
Yeah, Swain Senna bot, that definitely feels and looks more right to the eyes here. Swain Senna bot, definitely a good bot lane combo. Very good in the scaling department, which seems to be what OERT are also going for here. Vayne, Swain, Sylas, Senna, Gragas. These are all champions that scale into the game really well. Gragas, I would say, can definitely do a little bit of both, can snowball and scale, but as it looks like that will be the Gragas jungle, I'm curious to see how he is going to prioritize these lanes, as a lot of these lanes actually have really decent setup.
And there's actually substantial flex potential still on OERT side. I'm locking in. I think it's going to be Vayne top, Gragas jungle, and with the Sylas in the mid lane, Swain going to be the support role alongside the Senna. But I mean, honestly, you could go Sylas jungle, you could have the Gragas elsewhere, you could have Swain top. Maybe it is going to be Vayne Senna bot, right? That's still very much on the table. But regardless, OV a little bit more static in the way that they're drafting, and they got some good picks on their side, don't get me wrong. It always is a feel bad though when you go top lane and you're given a carry game number 1 and you just get absolutely smashed. So your team just says, go on tank duty, you're getting Ornn this time, unfortunately. Thigh high. We'll see if that's going to hit their ego, how they're going to perform, especially now that they are going to have a very miserable early game, if it is the case that it is in fact Bennett on.
Well, I would say this is definitely more of a comfort zone here for DoV Black, as Thigh High Demise has been playing more tank-style champions. I talked about it last time we were in draft for game 1, but Ornn, Mundo, Shen are kind of the champions that Thigh High Demise kind of specializes in. And so I think that we could probably see a better performance than what we saw last game, as it's more comfort pick, right? Comfort is definitely another very big factor in these types of drafts here. I mean, Vayne top lane, there's a reason you don't really see it in competitive. This has to be a more comfort pick here for the side of Bennett, I would imagine, as I definitely think that's what DoV as a team are kind of drafting more toward. They're saying, look, we tried these meta things last time. We tried these more unique things last time. We tried the Senna Cho'Gath. We tried to pull it off. We tried the Aurelion Soul top. and they figured out that it didn't work, so they went back to basics. They went back to comfort, which I definitely think is a wise decision if you're DoV Black. Going back to comfort is probably one of the safest bets you can have in a losing series, which they are currently losing. And trying to bounce back is definitely their goal. And I think that they're making steps in the right direction to change that.
My concern is that DoV Black not only need to change their picks, I think they need to change how they play the game. And that is still something that we don't really see just yet as we are. Because Quacks, here's the deal. Unfortunately, you just kind of play Lee Sin like a dead fish, right? Like when you're getting out ganked and out roamed by Guster and Kindred of all things, you know something is up. And unfortunately, the one time DoV had a little bit of a comeback going in at mid game, it was mostly because OERT just really overstepped rather than DoV Black actually making a smart macro call, playing off of vision, etc., etc. I'm just broadly worried about their ability to deploy these champions, no matter how many hours they have on them, to the best of their ability. While I would love to see us go to a game 3 here, I think that OERT have adjusted quite nicely. They understand that now they could really go full bully on a lot of different fronts here, right? You got that Swain bot side. And while this does scale pretty well with the Senna, it's not to the same degree as we saw with the Jinx game #1. Wops now feels that they can wreck people early. Bennett in the top side of the map, right? On that vein, just kind of a more extreme version of that Yone, just trying to flatten whatever they're up against. This time it's going to be the Horn. DoV Black, they are really going to be held to a tough fight. However, if they do in fact come out on top here, show real adjustment, I have faith they could take this entire series in a reverse sweep fashion. Right now, I just don't know if that's on the table for them.
Yeah, 100%. And another concern I have for the side of DoV Black's comp is that there is a lack of damage in my eyes here. Annie obviously can do a lot of damage if ahead. Viego can do a lot of damage if ahead. Varus can do a lot of damage if ahead. But the key is getting those types of characters ahead. And it's very difficult, especially the comp that OERT have drafted here. Very, very difficult to gank if you're a Viego here, which is a concern that I shared early on. Viego just has a tough time ganking, and it's such a gank-heavy meta for junglers that if they aren't able to get an early lead for some of the carries, the Varus, the Annie, then this game becomes 10 times, 100 times more difficult for DoV. It's just going to be really, really hard to get them on the board. But if they do get on the board, I can definitely see them making a comeback here in game 2. So yeah, I'm curious to see how well this Viego is going to play with what he's given.
All right, well, Quacks, I'm getting a little bit twitchy. It's day 3 of the March Basho in the sumo wrestling world, and it's currently being streamed, you know, on Japan time. So I want to get through the series. I want to get out onto the Rift. I want to give you guys a banger of a game here, but I really do got to get back out onto that stream later on tonight. So we are going to throw it to a quick break, get ourselves prepared, and see if DoV Black can take us to game number 3. See you guys soon.
like a bomb squad.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Aegis Protectors League. We got Optimal, Riptide, and Deep Black facing off for the second time. Moving on to the Rift with a little bit of a side swap. OER now on blue, and we'll see if DoV Black has gotten the feng shui change that they need to actually make a statement in this one. As unfortunately, that last game was looking a little bit rough for them. They went early game on some of their lanes, some of their jungle picks, but it just didn't really work out. Now here we're seeing quite a different look out of them, but Quacks, heard you say you're not a big fan of this comp anyway, so what's the deal?
Well, I feel that DoV lack a lot of damage. I feel that without Annie ahead, this comp essentially falls apart in the late game. If you look at Blue Side's comp, there's essentially nothing but damage. Even their support does probably more damage than the Viego is going to end up doing. I would be willing to put money on that if I'm being completely honest with you, as this Senna looks to be building correctly and will probably be going the Kraken Slayer. And so I also feel that this Varus in late game is just going to get blown up. Since this is a Gragas jungle, he's going to be going Night Harvester, Shadow Flame. Maybe he goes the Zhonya's second item. But that one Gragas cask, that one ultimate, is essentially going to pretty much one-shot the Varus, especially if Guster Posey can get ahead. And from what we've seen of him so far, he is a very capable jungler, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets ahead here in the early game.
What Senna skin is that? Never seen that before.
I believe that is the... Oh god, I can't remember all the names. So many of the new skins recently. I was about to say True Damage because it looks like True Damage, but I believe it's her.
Yeah, right?
It's her other prestige skin.
The fact that Senna has 2 prestige skins, I think, is statement enough about the champion. But alas, the map has opened up. We have the lanes crashing. We got an opposite side starts for our junglers, Crowd Control, IRL, and Guster Posey. Probably not going to be meeting one another too early on in this game, and we'll see if that leads to a situation where once again Thigh High Demise is going to get focused early. Bennett, obviously on that vein, looking to really bully this champion down, and so that makes sense now that the Gragas has started at the red buff and is pathing up.
Yeah, 100%. To answer your question here, that is Lunar Eclipse Senna. So yeah, that's what the skin is called here. So as we see some really smart pathing here from Guster Posey, he knows that Crowd Control IRL is going to look for that early bot lane gank, and so he opts to take his red quadrant and path down to cut off his ability to path all the way down without interference here. As if you look at both of these comps, it's very apparent that if you allow blue team's blue side to scale up, if you allow blue team's bot side to scale up, they're going to completely take over the map here as we see a bit of jungle skirmishing.
Guster Posey not able to smite that one away. Crowd Control IRL also has a health advantage, so the Gragas is just repelled, even with the priority WAPs and Arrow Cross have got bot side of the map. We'll have to see now if OER gambling in that way is going to pay off. As it currently stands, I feel that DoV Black actually comes out slightly favorable on that trade.
Yeah, 100%. Making that Gragas known just completely dissuades Crowd Control IRL from making any sort of bold move here in the bot lane, going for any sort of early game gank here, as we do see Guster Posey leading the bot lane, going to top side. So maybe this could open up an avenue here for this Viego to potentially gank, or maybe he could go mid lane here. We can see a little bit of trading here in the bot lane.
I mean, why not go bot? Arrowcross already taking the less than half health with no mana. WAPs also getting taken low. Forced to flash out of the way of that piercing arrow from Alpha Cyro. Oh yeah, the Viego gonna sit in that tri-bush. I don't think this wave's gonna be pushed in time for a dive, but hey, DoV Black showing signs of life. Really a good engage there off the Alistar.
Yeah, 100%. We can see those Raptors are tier 2 are beginning to spawn as Crowd Control IRL sets down a really good ward to keep track of those. And we can see Guster Posey crossing over towards the mid lane, trying to get that crab, making sure that Crowd Control can't double crab him. As we do see bot lane being taken quite low here on the side of blue team as well. So I'm curious because now the wave is in kind of a position where it's difficult for them to take a reset without losing like half a wave or a wave for that matter. So they have to clear out a couple waves before going in. But the problem with the champion like Swain is he's reliant on mana to clear these waves, which he doesn't have a lot of. So I'm curious to see if this will put them behind at all, as they are a scaling bot lane.
That being said, OER not going to come out too far behind off of the bot side of the map. They're getting a decent... We'll see if Mike wants to save that. He's kind of going to bounce back at towards them. As that is the case, OER walking down bot are going to be accompanied by Guster Posey, maybe looking to dragon. Not a whole lot of word. Ryebush or the likes of the river, very much up for picking either team.
Yeah, 100%. And we can see that Guster Posey gets his first reset off here nearly 5 minutes into the game. Opts for that Fiendish Codex. Now, I don't know if he had the gold or anything else, but definitely would say that the spike for Gragas in that early game is that alternator. That alternator turns you in from a CC machine to a CC machine with a couple Gatling guns attached to his back, as that alternator can really give you a lot of damage here in that early game. So it's a bit unfortunate that he didn't quite have the gold to reach that, as we do see both junglers sort of hovering around the bot lane here. A big wave is pushing in for the bot lane, so blue side definitely going to get pushed in here. It might open up an avenue for Guster Posey to gank here, but Crowd Control is in the area, so we might see a 3v3 soon.
Already bigger signs of life from DoV Black as a whole, though. They know what is on the map and what they need to early. They feel that they have the power in order to do so. Waps and Aerocross still down quite a few of their summoner spells, so it's going to be a bit tougher for them river and feel safe there, especially with all the in-game from crowd control and anti-spiral. Plus, if you can unlock mental boomer there from the mid lane, they have their full stack passive, they have some big AoE stuns, and Tibbers available. So this very much can be an early game that goes in Red Squad's favor right now.
Yeah, 100%. We can see Guster Posey going onto that dragon here like last game. It seems that OERT are heavily prioritizing making sure to get these objectives, making sure they're the ones ahead in the scaling game, as a little bit of trading coming in from the bot lane here.
Good root anti-spiral taken to about half health. Alpha Cyro also just going to get hit on their way back towards the wave. And another claw there from Waps means that the Varus is going to go even lower. Aerocross trying to give chase. Anti-spiral with a good stun, able to save their laner. Although now with that root landing down, they may be the ones falling here as they go less than 100 health. And one more Q will be in. That's First Blood and Dragon now for Optimal Esports Riptide.
Actually, a really smart time to engage here for Waps. They know that Alpha Sarah doesn't have that flash, and so they're taking full advantage. This is exactly what I said the Varus would be prone to, getting engaged on, as his flash is his only escape. But hold that thought.
Crowd control going to kill Sir Envy, but because Guster Posey was there camping in that bush, they're able to make that back into a 2-for-1 in favor of OER. Now on the board, we're seeing about 1,000 gold lead plus develop for Blue Squad's side, and it's echoes of past games now.
Yeah, 100%. That is absolutely huge for the jungler of OERT here, as 2 kills on Gragas is really good. He's likely going to reset after this wave, as he doesn't really have any mana left, and will get that alternator and get a few, maybe he'll get a control ward here and there. Just getting his item spike here in the early game, absolutely huge here for the Gragas, as he's going to start to deal a lot of damage here in this game.
All right, well, Optimal Esports Riptide once again off to a very good start. DoV Black, I don't think are completely wrecked on the Rift just yet, though. Still are able to make some plays off the back of crowd control IRL, who just feels so much more alive in this round. So that's something to watch out for. Obviously, their play mid didn't really work out quite that well because, once again, Guster Posey is just so disgustingly good at reading counter ganks, reading angles, and from there getting themselves into a profitable situation. But I'm not going to count out Red Squad quite yet, Quacks. I think that this is a game that is still very much in their wheelhouse, and now we are seeing them angle down bot side. Big headbutt, pulverize it, even with Aerocross firing off the Radiant Dawn. I don't think it's going to be enough to save the Swain as they're taken low. And now with the body steal, crowd control is able to pull the Seta towards themselves, although a nice little flash there gets them to safety. And that Heartbreaker is going to go wide. Now, top side of the map, though, that's a nightmare scenario for Bennett. As high demise on the Ornn is somehow going to solo bolo down this champion meant to bust tanks.
Yeah, absolutely. That Warden's Mail coming in clutch here from Thigh-High Demise. It is definitely the go-to item you want to build when going against these tougher matchups in top lane, especially the range top laners like Akshan and Vayne. It reduces incoming damage from attacks by around 10 every single hit, which is absolutely huge for a champion who has silver bolts. But again, more fighting.
Over Envy somehow able to get out of that choke point, but Tibbers is continuing to chase, and crowd control has reset, coming back with a fistful of quarters and a warpath to be had. Guster Posey taken low, shutdown going to be picked up off the Ignite by Anti-Spiral. Sir Envy trying to find their angle, but a clutch stun for Mental Boomer is going to save their Alistar for the time being, allowing for another WQ combo to get pulled off. Now Waps is taken down, and so while that will be finally a kill traded back for OER, as the Annie falls, it's a 3-for-1. DoV Black not only on the board, but above OER in terms of kills.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely a really good fight here for DoV Black, as now we have 3 kills onto that Viego. Crowd control IRL already looking way more comfortable here on this Viego than he did on the Lee Sin. And that looks like it is going to be a Noon Quiver picked up for crowd control IRL, implying that he will be going the I'm blanking on the item, the ADC item. Help me out here, Niargo. Kraken,
All right, what we got
you.
here, yeah, Kraken Slayer. This is definitely a different angle than what we saw in game number 1 from DoV Black Senna. And I think this is just a better one. That Heartsteel takes forever to get online and actually get tanky. Meanwhile, Arrow Cross is just looking to tear through some of these champions early and often. Given the fact that there's an Alistar, there's an Ornn on the enemy team, I think that this is a very prudent choice, especially as Bennett has fallen behind a little bit. Sure, they're still up on CS, but you're really hoping that the Vayne will just never have to deal with the fact that OER lacks frontliners, and that's just not the case. The fact that Thigh-High Demise got a kill up there has really kind of softened the impact of this draft choice. And I think because that is the case, DoV still have that one lane to look forward to, alongside the fact that the rest of the map is going quite nicely for them. Although Guster Posey has found crowd control in the river, there's still a flash available. The Viego could get out of this one, but they're rooted by the Senna. The ultimate takes them even lower, and now Waps gets the angle in with their Flash Demonic Ascension to take this champion down. Anti-Spiral also sent packing, and Optimal Esports Riptide have found the dragon.
What an absolutely clutch W on the side of Arrow Cross there, getting crowd control after his flash, securing the kill for the side of OERT here. And yeah, Guster Posey now with that mythic item, making it so that he builds damage, but oh boy, hold that thought.
Oh, the clutch condemn gonna stop the knockback of the Forge God, and so Thigh-High Demise not gonna be able to quite get another solo kill. Stuff OERT holding on even in the cross map play.
Yeah, 100%. That'll be 2 dragons up here for OERT, so they definitely have the advantage of scaling here. I would argue that whoever fights this 3rd dragon, whoever gets it, could definitely win the game. If OERT here get this 3rd Drake, which looks like it's going to be an Ocean Soul now here as the map has begun to change, if they manage to get this 3rd Drake and it's an Ocean Drake, I think it could be, honestly, a game-ending Drake, as with things like the Senna heal, like the Swain R, like Gragas' passive, those heals are just completely amplified, and they get more heals and more regeneration with an Ocean Drake. So it's going to be ridiculously difficult to kill champions who have healing built into basically their entire comp. Almost everyone on the side of blue team has a heal, and they are influenced, and it's a huge advantage for them to get this Ocean Drake. So I can definitely see this game just ending if they manage to get this 3rd Drake.
I mean, Optimal Esports Riptide have kind of lucked out on 2 Drakes running now in terms of soul. Quacks, I mean, the Mountain Soul was exactly what they needed game number 1, and now you got a literal Drain Tank, probably one of the best champions to play alongside Ocean Soul in the form of that Swain. So across the board, I think that OER find themselves very much in the advantage this time around. Not quite to the same degree as we were on, but DoV Black still has their backs against the wall, and the situation is even more dire knowing that this series.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. And we're really seeing the top laner. We're really seeing Thigh-High Demise in his comfort here. Even though I would say he's losing the lane, he's definitely holding his own as, hang on a minute, Anti-Spiral going for a play here.
I mean, they're trying to set up for a 2v2, but they did not expect Guster Posey to just walk right back in. And that big explosive cast means that crowd control IRL has nowhere to go. Anti-Spiral able to just barely get out by the hair on their chinny chin. But OER yet again find the kill with no respite for the wicked.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm even more worried for the side of DoV Black and the side, and especially Anti-Spiral here in this game when this game eventually breaks open. Alistar ultimate is arguably one of the best ultimates you can have if you're Sylas here. It just completely makes him invincible, which who wouldn't want to be invincible here, as Sylas excels in late game fighting, as Guster Posey taken really low here, but not gonna die.
Good little trade there. Unfortunately, Anti-Spiral just could not engage off of the anti-stun in the Tibbers drop because of the fact that they were still sitting there at basically about 200 health. So Optimal Esports Riptide are able to usher out Guster Posey, get them to mosey back down towards the fountain. But I mean, there still are signs of life from Red Squad side. DoV Black have a chance to make things heard around that 3rd dragon like you were talking about, although looks like Envy wants to go in early. Already Ignite taken away on Mental Boomer. They flash back towards safety. The shield there will be able to save them as crowd control cleans up the backside of that play. And hey, I just said DoV Black, they got signs of life. That's one way to do it. Get some more kills over to the Viego.
my man, what are you doing? His mind was completely split on that play of whether to ult over the wall and try to run away from crowd control. Maybe he could have saved himself here, even though he had that ignite ticking on him, or to flash in and maybe ult, try and get that Annie and make it a 1-for-1. And ultimately, he chose too little. He chose too late, and it ultimately proved to be his demise. As it looks like they're going here. I mean, not OERT, DoV Black here, going for this Drake, but they look like they might be pinched on all angles here. Crowd
It's a
control is
3v3,
really low.
and look at the body slam. It's gonna hit 2, and now with 1 already dead, DoV Black has to run. Crowd control has been taken out, and that is yet again a beautiful rotation from Optimal eSports. WAP cannot quite get the further engage to get more kills over to their side. Guster Posey is gonna find a little tree in that tri-bush that has been created by the Ocean Soul, and Thigh High Demise will not be able to reset there.
Absolutely beautiful engage there from Guster Posey. The E flash into Cask hit 3 of them and completely dismantled them, spreading them to basically all corners of the fight. They weren't able to help out crowd control at all, as both Thigh High Demise, wow, that is such a name to say, and Anti-Spiral were just completely on opposite sides. So a beautiful combo from Guster Posey, followed up by a lot of good damage from his team, especially Waps there with that Swain coming in really clutch, as now it's really starting to get stacks here on that ROA. 7 stacks now with 939 health done from that Rod of Ages here.
Oh
really
no, Alpha Spyro so low. They're going to be repelled from this fight. In fact, they're just going to be taken down by Guster Posey. Call the Forge God means that now the Gragas is a little bit caught out, but here comes the cavalry from around the corner. Arrow, Cross, and company are just going to lay waste to the defenses of DoV Black. There's the double kill for Crowd Control IRL, but they're the ones getting CC'd now. The Kadema against the wall means that the VU's reign of terror is going to be ended in explosive fashion. Thigh High Demise has no team to tank for. That is going to be third Dragon to OER.
What an absolutely, I honestly thought that fight might have gone in the way of DoV Black there. Crowd Control was getting a lot of resets, but that Condemn just completely ruined it for his team, as there's not going to be anything they can do about this Dragon now. Crowd Control is down, and they might try and run to go get it, but there's just nothing to be done here. Third Dragon going over to the side of OERT in a really convincing fashion, as Senna just slowly getting those souls, getting those stacks in, as she has 78 souls at 19 minutes practically. That's a ton of bonus range, and absolutely lethal Senna here from Aerocross coming about onto this game, as this game just looks more doomed by the minute here. OERT just scaling to oblivion, not giving DoV an absolute chance at all in hell to come back into this game.
And this is really the nightmare scenario bot side of the map for DoV Black. It's like, hey, sure, you are getting a massive drain tank hyper carry APC fed with Waps getting all of that farm, but now for some reason you also have an ADC on top of it instead of an actual support. Aerocross also just absolutely massive right now, able to just kind of hold their own in fights, pump and dump damage, and follow up that is there for no weak point. They are up a substantial amount of gold, about 6,000 in their favor over DoV right now. And given that we're moving closer and closer to a Terran play, I think that is just going to spiral out of control in a way that DoV Black cannot answer back to. An anti-spiral.
Yeah, 100% here. We can see that they're just trying to take over the map here with a classic 1-3-1 split. Waps in the top lane. They drop the Herald into the mid lane with 3 of their members. And Bennett just in that bot lane trying to get some pressure in, trying to absorb it. And overall, I think this is actually a really smart way to split the map here. With Guster Posey here in the mid lane, any threat of an engage just gets immediately turned around, and he can just basically ask them or belly bump them or do Gragas things to them to make sure that they can't fight back. As hold that thought,
I mean, they're doing Gragas things to them. Crowd Control IRL just going to get absolutely obliterated by their jungle counterpart there with a little bit of help from Aerocross once again. And so DoV Black still just unable to defend anywhere on the map right now. Mental Boomer, they're going to have their back interrupted. Just says, screw it, goes for the flash engage. Waps eventually taken down because of Timbers. Mental Boomer, though, taking too little aggro. Oh my god, and somehow that's going to be a trade. OER, they just stay winning.
Yeah, 100%. That was, well, I guess the minions are even on the game side, are even on OERT side as they finish off Mental Boomer here as a little bit of damage here coming in from mid lane. Anti-Spiral taken very low, but he manages to pop the ultimate here as 6, 2, and 3 here for Guster Posey here on this Gragas, and he's building very well too. A lot of people opt to get Ionian Boots of Lucidity, and I would argue that while it does have its merits, going those boots does not work when you're very far ahead like this. Going Sork Shoes is absolutely the play. And on the other side of builds, we have the Infinity Edge here for the Viego. I am not quite sure what kind of Vietnamese Korean dark technology this is, but I'm not sure I'm a fan, to be honest, here, Niargo. I mean,
they need damage. This is one way to try to get it, Quacks. I don't know. Bennett maybe finally a little bit caught out, just going to try to re-engage their aggro back down onto crowd control IRL, and it pays off beautifully as now Mental Boomer is also taken down. Arrow cross. That's not a support. That's a doggone marksman. Tearing up the enemy team. That's a triple kill for the Senna, and DoV Black are getting DoV snapped across this rift.
One, man. I don't know why that came across so weird, but yes, that's going to be an ace here for the side of OERT here as they continue to push in. They're basically taken to their base here now, DoV Black, as now they just basically don't have a lot to defend here. The Drake will be up here very shortly, but if they fight this, they're going to lose completely. If they fight this, there's a chance that OERT could just basically end the game, and if they don't think they can end the game, they can just go straight for the Baron. Either way, I feel like it's definitely a lose-lose situation here for DoV Black as they're basically locked out of this game. 2 and 5 on this Annie, 1 and 2 on this Varus, and the only real meaningful damage they have here is this Viego, who is going full crit. He doesn't have any way to go into this backline, doesn't have any way to deal real damage to this comp, especially if they group up as, I mean, you can see this here right now. OERT are so confident in their ability to win this fight, they're just saying, Waps, why don't you go and stay top, buddy? We can do this. We can take them. No problem at all.
Yeah, you could say that DoV Black's only positive play in the past few minutes was running it down bot side instead of top, which means that it wasn't an immediate pivot over to the Baron. OER just gonna instead set up for Dragon Soul. Call of the Forge God gonna get the knockup down onto Bennett, but like I said, you got multiple ADCs to have to deal with. Sir Envy and Arrow Cross gonna put Anti-Spiral back into the dirt, and that is going to be the full chase off. DoV cannot take the 4v5, but OER can in fact take the Soul.
Arrow is just the absolute American sniper here now, IRL here in this game, being able to snipe them basically from like across the wall, from over that wall. He's just able to kill Anti-Spiral here as now they will be looking for this Drake. Crowd control is in the area, but even if he does steal, I'm not sure it'll make a difference here. I don't see a way now that they have Ocean Soul that Red Team can come back into this game.
Unfortunate too, DoV Black looking a little bit cleaner early on in this match. I really thought that maybe they were going to be able to keep up the optimal eSports Riptide curse, but unfortunately, Quacks, I don't think that's going to be the case. Too dominant of a gold lead. It's like, what, 12,000, 13,000 in Blue Squad's favor at this point in time. DoV Black are sitting on that kind of deficit at just the 25-minute mark. This is a sign of utter domination and a team that just has no hope.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to read to the audience the quick stats of how many souls this Senna has gotten. So in 25 minutes, this Senna has managed to get 110 souls. So that has given her 82.5 extra attack damage from the mist, 100 range, 50% critical strike chance, and among other things, just a heck of a lot of souls, which basically just makes it so you will never ever be able to even reach this Senna at this point. 100 plus range on this Senna is absolutely huge.
Well, DoV Black is starting to get some of those upgraded ornaments over to side, but I said it before in game number one in regards to the little picks that they were, and it's too little too late. Even this kill onto Bennett that they're definitely angling for, I don't think is going to be enough to stop the sieges that are coming through elsewhere on the map. In fact, Guster Posey just killing crowd control IRL doesn't even make this a deficit play for OER. They're able to push deeper. There's the double kill for the Gragas. Wops just gonna flash under turret aggro. They're that confident they can find another pickoff as Alpha Cyro is ignited and taken down by Sir Envy, and now there's the hook we were looking for. Mental Boomer also dead. Anti-Spiral, the last one left alive, but not for too long. Optimal Esports Riptide are gonna end the game and crush DoV Black.
Absolute domination here from the side of OERT. Through and through, they played both games ridiculously well. They played to their strengths, they played to their comps perfectly, they built correctly, and overall, they played a hell of a good series here. So they definitely deserve this win, and I'm very curious to see them if they manage to make playoffs here. I hope that they do well because they have definitely earned this game, they have definitely earned this series, and they have definitely earned the reputation for themselves that they are a team to be feared, a team to be respected, and they will close this series out 2-0.
Guster Posey in particular, just a real standout. That jungle control, the macro, the shot calling, all coming in clutch. And Optimal Esports Riptide show that even maybe without the most flawless of early games, they could still find massive advantages. I mean, they really took it to DoV Black and massively exploited the weakness as it just felt that at many points in time, even with attempts to get picks, the all came solely because Optimal Esports Riptide were overextending and playing a little responsibly, rather than me really seeing signs of life, signs of domination that convince me that DoV will be able to take a game in the series.
Yeah, 100%. And I definitely want to highlight that huge congratulations here to OERT here, as this is the first 2-0 series they have had in their entire series here. So big congratulations to them. They definitely earned that title, as unfortunately for DoV, they will continue to stay winless in these series. They did give a really good performance, I would say. They had a few bright spots here and there. I definitely want to highlight that I think Mental Boomer did a really good job at playing his matchups. Despite losing, he still did 22,000 damage in this game, which is way more than the rest of his teammates, almost more than all of them basically combined. And I definitely want to give him a huge shout out, even though they did not win. I think that there were certain signs of life, certain signs of life from DoV Black that if they just work out a few of the kinks, I could definitely see them picking up their series here next week.
All right. Well, Optimal Esports Riptide, congratulations to you all trying to move up, make a statement in the harrowing conference. Although it looks like the decision has already been made that they're eliminated, if I'm reading the Excel spreadsheet
Mhm.
correctly. Although it being an Excel spreadsheet probably means I'm not reading it. I have absolutely no clue how to use this program. Regardless, yeah, it's been a banger. It's been a fun one. And it's been a great time alongside you, Quacks. Thank you for accompanying me. Glad to be back in Aegis, even if it is a while. We didn't get the 3-game series I was hoping for, but still, fun times on the Rift with you, and shout outs to PS on production as well.
Yeah, 100%. Huge thank you to PBS for doing an absolute amazing job of being our producer this game. Thank you so much to chat for being for watching and being so interactful. And yeah, I definitely enjoyed casting APL here for all of you today. So yeah, I just hope that everyone enjoyed themselves. Everyone had a fun time watching. And yeah, there's not much else to say. Beautiful, beautiful stream, beautiful, beautiful games from both teams, even if it was just a 2-0. And look on the bright side here now. You get to watch your wrestling stream.
Yeah, sumo wrestling going down. I was trying to ask PVS if we could just raid Midnight Sumo, but I don't think that that's unfortunately allowed. But I'll be over there. Come hang out. We could make everybody in chat wig out a little bit as we talk about League of Legends in the middle of, I think we're in like 4th division right now for sumo. But yeah, going to be going on through Alpha Night. I'm going to be hanging out there. But for right here on the Aegis stream, we are done. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Have a good night.